Welcome to another episode of Market Like a Mother, Radiant Marketing's podcast, where this season we are debunking marketing myths. And in this episode, we're going to be debunking the myth that more followers, more engagement, more likes on social media means more success, more revenue for your business. Let's get into it. Hey, Karen, how are you today?
Good, Lauren. How are you?
I'm good. I am excited for this topic today because I feel like it resonates really close to home with me. And I was like hurting my own feelings a bit as I was diving into this topic. So I'm excited for this today. So we're talking about the myth that more followers equals basically more success, a successful business. So lots to dive into here today.
Yeah, I think this is a common misconception and a metric like these vanity metrics that a lot of businesses chase that don't end up doing them much good, or at least much sustainable good.
Yeah, absolutely. So right before this, Karen and I were actually talking about, I have a lot of friends that are in the business world that are my age, and it seems to be maybe with the younger generation more, but there's such this focus on the social media aspect of starting a business or starting a brand, and that you need this viral moment and you need this visibility. But it's, if that is your only metric that you're using to define the success of your business or brand, yes, you're going to be successful. But we were just kind of talking about what happens after that. That doesn't necessarily equal revenue. That doesn't equal leads that's converting. It doesn't equal, long-term customers. So it's really, being able to take a step back from that social media aspect of branding and businesses.
Yeah, because I think even when you achieve that moment of virality, a lot of times it's short lived. I was just on a marketing forum the other day that was talking about this too. It was a woman that was running a business and she had gone viral on TikTok, and she was like, so confused because her post had received millions of views. She had increased in her number of followers significantly, and there hadn't been one single purchase of her e-commerce product. She was like, I'm testing the checkout to make sure it actually works. People are saying the product is great. She's like, but literally no one has purchased. And I think that's like a peek behind the curtain of like what virality means for a lot of businesses. Like some, it can increase revenue, temporarily. Maybe for a small subset, it might be sustainable. But in most instances, if that's the only metric you're chasing, it's not going to be sustainable.
Exactly. And I think too, something that people don't realize about going viral is like you have this moment of success and maybe you're gaining all of these followers and you're gaining all of this new engagement, but these aren't necessarily people that are going to engage with your business or your product long term. So I've even felt that on the influencer side and the creator side, where one of my videos at this moment has over 1 million likes, and I believe the last time I checked it, it was 24 million views. So insane numbers.
You're
And
so
it brought me,
popular, Lauren.
I'm just so successful. No, it was literally one video of me. And I believe it brought in about 20,000 followers for me. And after that video went viral, for weeks, I saw the lowest dips in my engagement that I had ever had in my content. People had obviously really resonated and liked this one video, but again, they didn't learn anything about me. It didn't make them necessarily a fan of me specifically. And those weren't people that engage with my content to this day, still over time. So it's, when these brands achieve that moment, I'm like, you're basically gaining a temporary fan base.
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly challenging balance, right? Because a lot of times the things that go viral because it's like a an entertaining or an emotional trend that people can really attach to. And unless that also translates into some sort of like brand value or brand connection, then you can get that virality, but it not create like lasting connections and engagement. And so you have to
Yeah.
like really decide ahead of time too, if you're going to invest resources in creating an asset that like has the goal of going viral, like recognize, is it also going to be, complementing my brand really well? Or is it just like a fun piece we want to put out there because we're super into this trend and we think it would be really, cool to showcase our team doing these things, or whatever the specific scenario is. But I think you have to recognize that like, even if you achieve that virality, like it still may mean nothing to your bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about this. You mentioned this earlier too, like the whole aspect of a vanity metric. And so Karen does, if you're not subscribed to it, her marketing VIP newsletter. And you talked a little bit about this actually this month, which was super timely. Do you want to maybe speak to some of those metrics that you mentioned in your email, kind of what people should be focusing on? Because like we've said before, virality doesn't necessarily mean like ROI, that it's a metric that it's fun to track. It is important to track, but there's so many other things that kind of help determine the success of your brand or business.
Yeah. So again, it depends on your business, but like, what is the final metric we're trying to achieve? Whether that's a subscription online, or a product being purchased, or a membership to a studio, and then kind of trace that back to the metrics that really tie most closely and influence that metric most directly. And a lot of times, like it could lead all the way back to, social impressions potentially, but we want to look at things like, is this leading to booked calls? Is this leading to new subscribers? Are my members renewing? What is the customer lifetime value? Is it improving over time? So like those are the metrics, or your customer acquisition costs. Like those are the things that tell you more about the health of your and success of your marketing initiatives than, of course, something like followers or even likes and engagement on social media. Because if it's temporary and those likes and engagement aren't translating to website visits, which are translating to subscribers, which are translating to purchases, then a lot of your efforts might be wasted. And so just making sure that in almost everything you're doing, you're following that path through to that final metric that is going to determine, the health and success and growth of your business in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we see a lot of clients too expressing like those pain points of like frustration of, well, my social posts aren't performing well, or, I'm posting Instagrams and it's getting 2 likes. And it can be so easy to be hung up on that. And I know we work with like a concierge medicine facility, and they have a wait list half the time. I mean, they're consistently getting new members subscribed, but you wouldn't necessarily look at their social media and be like, they're having these major viral moments every month. But they're incredibly successful in other aspects. So it's important too to focus on kind of like you said, those metrics that actually are, determining the success of your business. And so,
Well, and it's interesting too, just to use that example, is I think the content you're producing that is engaging those quality leads may only be uncovered in conversation. So it might be mentioned when they reach out to schedule a meet and greet, like, oh, I was following your blog and reading your content, or I saw, these posts go up on social media. And so, some of it, just to speak briefly, because I think we could have a whole conversation on attribution, but just to speak briefly on this topic is like, it is hard. Like, we're not saying it's easy to track directly all of these metrics. You do want to put some systems in place. You want to have some tracking tools to help you evaluate that. And we obviously understand that there's a lot of touch points that influence those ultimate kind of final decisions. But it's not always, the metrics that you think it may be, that is what's getting you to where you want to be. So again, like the post might not have gotten a lot of likes, but it was seen by the right people. You had the right content in it, and it really resonated with your ideal audience. And it did end up resulting in a booked meet and greet or a new member or whatever that, final outcome is that you're trying to achieve.
yeah, absolutely. I so agree. And before we get into the framework too, something I want to just mention is you also have to have the kind of the knowledge too that nowadays a lot of this engagement that you see on social media too might not be authentic. There's so many different
Mm-hmm.
platforms that you could use to buy likes, to buy followers. There's even bots that you could have leaving comments on, posts. So I also like to kind of preface to anyone who's trying to be successful on social media that you can't compare yourself to other brands or
Mm-hmm.
other creators, because again, you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, and all of that engagement could truly be inauthentic. And again, you're never going to reach that success that they have because they're paying for it in a way.
Well, okay, completely agree with that. But at the same time, if you look at the metrics in terms of like engagement and such on very big brands, a lot of times you'll see that their engagement metrics may mirror yours. So they might have 10 million followers, but their posts are actually only getting like 1% engagement. And so not to say like use that to be encouraged or discouraged, but just take that, that piece of data into consideration as well when you are looking at those surface metrics to see what's kind of going on in the larger landscape.
Yeah, absolutely. And for any brands out there, that's why you should work with micro creators like me, because we have really good engagement rates.
Shout out for Lauren as an
I'm like, this is all an elaborate ploy for me to promote my own business. But let's get into the framework again. We always like to give you guys like actual tangible advice, things to take away, and that's our framework section. So I'll kind of read through them and then we'll dive into them a little bit more. But this first one actually is probably one of my favorite ones I've ever written: connection over clout. And if you're not familiar with the slang word, clout is basically a term for getting a lot of engagement or viral moments on social media, kind of that attention that social media brings. Having conversations over comments, or conversions, sorry, I can't even read. Conversions over comments, consistency over virality, and
mm-hmm.
community over competition. So I think these are all
Mm-hmm.
very, very important things. Let's start with that connection aspect. So again, meaningful engagement every single time will beat those surface level likes. Those the
Yep.
likes, someone might be commenting an emoji, those meaningful conversations, whether it's via DM or like you said, when people kind of mention it to you in real life feedback, those are so much more important and speak so much more to your brand than, someone commenting an emoji and liking your post.
Yeah, and not to say we don't want, massive success, but a lot of the businesses we work with are smaller businesses. So every meaningful interaction matters. If you're trying to sell a really high ticket luxury item, you want to make sure that you're getting those meaningful interactions with that smallest viable audience versus like meaningless interactions with like broad general audiences that have no intention to purchase from you. But yes, of course, like all of our themes, right? There's always this authenticity. There's always this human centric approach to creating success with your marketing initiatives. And this is no exception here. You want to create connection over just like being flashy and getting your information out there and hopping on the latest trends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I even just thinking to my personal experience with social media too, I probably couldn't tell you any comment that was left on my videos in the past 4 weeks, but when someone comes up to me and will reference something specific in one of my videos and it sparks a conversation and it sparks a connection, like that is so much more meaningful just on a personal level. And again, so being able to have that with a brand too, and being able to have, a brand post something or we post something as Radiant and have someone tell us that they saw it, that they resonated with it. I mean, it's even just like you said, it's that human centric aspect, which is such a good feeling. And I'm sure for the customer as well, it's such a positive feeling.
Yeah, and I know we were going to talk about this, but I love that idea of like, would you post that? Would I still post this if only 100 people viewed it versus 100,000? And I think that just kind of speaks to that connection, that resonance, and understanding your audience. If you knew 100 people that like would be great candidates for your service or solution would see this, is like, are you targeting it to them? Does it make sense for this to still go up to them? And I think that's a good way to kind of audit and evaluate that.
Absolutely. And we spoke to this a little earlier, but so conversions over comments. So again, that goes back to tracking those metrics that actually are indicating success of your business. So are people joining your email list? Are they booking consultations? Are they purchasing after interacting with you online? Like you said, that example that you had of that woman who had this viral moment that had led to no sales, so are they just liking your content, your posts, or are they actually interacting with your business in a positive way?
Yeah, another example that I was at an event not that long ago talking to a newer business that had started. He had a video go viral on TikTok again, and for a month he saw like an incredible influx in purchases, and it was super encouraging. And then it completely fell flat and nothing. And it had been, I think it had been 3 to 4 months since that had happened, and there was no change. So like, yes, great month, like fantastic. Maybe that built up the savings account so that you could reinvest in some more sustainable strategies. But yeah, even short term conversions can be tricky. You want to make sure that what you're implementing is helping to either like increase the customer lifetime value too, if you have those opportunities within your business, or it's creating customers that can become advocates and are continuing to support and build the brand with you. That's encouraging more referrals and conversions as well. But yeah, paying attention to those like more bottom of the funnel, more important metrics that drive real growth, bottom line health for the business is what you want to make sure you're always kind of connecting everything back to.
And I think too, if you're still very set on using social media as like a large marketing tool for your brand or your business, those metrics could actually help you determine what you want to be pushing on social. So let's say your blog is the most successful metric that you're tracking right now. You're getting lots of visitors to your blog, you're getting lots of subscribe forms on the website to your blog or to your newsletter. How could we then use social media and maybe chase these viral moments to push people, to the blog more, to push them to an aspect of your business that seems to be performing well? So I think too, you could also use the metrics of your business to kind of determine how to use social media as a visibility tool in a positive way. Again, it doesn't just need to be chasing that viral moment. It could be pushing people to, that subscribe form, pushing people to your product page. So it's kind of about using those metrics to determine how you want to use social media as a tool too.
Yeah, definitely being strategic about how you're connecting all those channels. And when you are tuned into those metrics, you can make those informed decisions.
Absolutely. So the next one I would argue to me feels the most important. So consistency over virality. There needs to be a steady posting rhythm, a steady, consistent messaging, and you need to build that recognition, build that loyalty with your audience way after the viral moment happened. So I can't tell you how many times I've seen people get discouraged when they're pursuing social media, and maybe they have 2-3 videos in a row that perform well, and then they have, a couple weeks where their videos drop back down to low views, low engagement, because that's how it happens. Social media it ebbs and flows, and then they just stop. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, you're never going to be able to build a loyal following, build a fan base, build people that want to continue interacting with your content if you're not posting on a consistent cadence. And again, so I think if you're going to use social media as a tool for your business, you need to commit to doing it consistently, or it's really just going to end up hurting you more.
Yeah. And I mean, these are all just like building on each other, right? So like you said, understanding what's working and applying that, optimizing your campaigns and like consistently doing that over time is what's going to drive the greatest success. So paying attention to those metrics to help inform what that consistent content would look like. And of course that can change over time. Your audience may grow and evolve. There might be different things you're focused on based on seasonality. But having a general consistency, whether that's in the cadence and or in like the themes that you really want to present yourself as an expert in. So for our clients, we create, what they're called brand pillars. So your brand pillars are typically 2 to 4 kind of core root topics or core topics that all of your other content kind of revolves around. So you're establishing yourself as an authority in these areas. And then all of your content's kind of subtopics of those core content pieces. And builds on that. So that's a great way to create consistency too, is you're not just like randomly chasing trends that don't have anything to do with your business. You're building authority over time on these topics and with the use of these subtopics.
Absolutely. And I think too, that's where content strategy becomes so important. And it is a big part of consistency too, being able to plan out your content themes, like you said, relating back to these brand pillars, which I mean, we have a really, really good content strategist at Radiant. So we're like very lucky in that
Gosh,
aspect.
so many shout outs to Lauren.
Really good. And if you don't know what your brand pillars necessarily are, we could totally help you with that at Radiant too. So just another plug back to us there.
Yeah, love it.
And then the last one, this one I feel like we've talked about so many times throughout this season, which I love. So community over competition. And I think this really stems back to, like you've said before, Karen, that smallest viable audience. So talking to the people that actually matter, talking to the right people, not just talking to the masses, and how much a smaller, loyal, more community is better than, this really broad audience who is not interacting with your brand, not interacting with your business.
Yeah. And kind of goes back to our recommendation to be aware of what the competition is doing or what, influencers in your space are doing, but don't base all of your decisions on that, because you ideally have like your own unique audience that is going to be more connected to you. And you're going to need to kind of test some of these things to really see what resonates with them. So use that, competitive analysis as some benchmarks or kind of guidelines. But of course, really lean into what your community is telling you about what they need, want, desire, their goals, all of those things. And that's going to shape how you present yourself on social media, the content you're creating, the channels you're even using. Because for some, they might not need to be on social media. I know that sounds crazy. But I think that like understanding your community and really putting them first is an important piece of all of your marketing strategy and channels.
Absolutely. And you brought up a good point there too, is that your audience might not be on social media in the way that other audiences might. And they also might not be on every platform too. So, you have to think, do I have a need to be on every single platform? Do I need to be on X? Do I need to be on YouTube? Do I need to be on TikTok? Or are just some of my audience members maybe on Facebook or on Instagram? So that's kind of something to think about too, is where is your audience showing up and how are they showing up?
Yeah. And if you're an established business, even just reflecting on the last 30, 60, 90 days of where your customers came from, whether that's through surveys or like data, tracking through Google Analytics to see, okay, these last, 30 customers came from these specific channels. I'm going to lean into those channels because likely if I do more in that space, I'll see more return. So if you're not seeing anything coming from a specific social channel or another initiative that you have in place, then maybe it's time to pivot a bit and test something else out. But definitely look at the data because that's going to help you make those decisions. And as we go into, a new year and you're planning out, whether that's like your quarterly plans or your annual plans, that information will really help to make or break your marketing campaigns moving forward.
Absolutely. And I guess as we're kind of coming to the end of the year here, and a lot of these brands and businesses will be planning their strategy, whether that's through social media or just their business goals for 2026. I know that's something that we're doing here at Radiant is kind of taking a moment to create our content calendars, our marketing calendars for next year. And I think a really important thing to ask yourself is just how could social media help me reach my business goals? Again, so you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to be tracking every single metrics in terms of just, I have a goal of 20 likes on a post. It should just be how is social media helping me further my business goals? And that's something that I think as the year ends, it'd be really important for most business owners to take a step back and ask themselves that as they're planning for the new year.
Yes, I love that. I love that question. Just tying that back to the metrics that matter most.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're kind of talking too about the community aspect, I wanted to share just like a really important thing that I was taught once. Obviously, I'm pursuing social media on the side, and someone once told me that if you're creating for the algorithm, you stop creating for your audience. So, of course, the algorithms on social media can be so frustrating, and they change so often. And I think it's another reason why tracking solely social media metrics could be kind of not giving you a complete picture, because there's times where, say, TikTok will go through an algorithm update and everyone's views and engagement and likes are going to drop, because that's kind of what we see when we see a system update, a system kind of like overhaul. And so once you're creating content that's just solely to be pushed by the algorithm, because there are little hacks and cheat codes kind of that you could do in your content, you're losing that human aspect right off the bat. You're no longer creating for your audience. Like you said, it would I
Mm-hmm.
still post this if 100 people were looking at it versus, a million. So that's kind of my biggest advice too, is not to let those metrics sway you into changing how you're creating content and how you're showing up for your audience. Because it could be easy to fall into that trap of just kind of becoming a slave to the algorithm almost and appeasing it the best that you can.
Yeah, I think that leads perfectly into your grandpa's quote too. Do you want to share that?
Oh yes, for the audience, my grandpa's very involved in my side hustle here, and he always told me you can't deposit likes into a bank account. And I used to laugh when he would say that, but it is so true, because again, you could have this business that is consistently going viral, that you are getting millions of views and likes on your posts, and that does not automatically translate in any way into direct revenue. And again, so it's something to think about, because you really want to look at you want your business to be successful. You want to have a lot of revenue, and that's, likes don't pay the bills. So definitely thinking of how could I get these customers and these people that are interacting with my posts to actually convert and do what I want them to do, not just like my post.
Absolutely. Shout out to Grandpa Karwowski.
Shout out to Grandpa. And always we like to do some reflection questions for you guys for, to kind of audit your own social media strategies. So something to think about this week are what metrics do you actually track that connect to sales or conversions again? So really taking a step back and making sure, am I looking at the right metrics of my business? Because you also might be tracking the wrong things. It's worth kind of giving that an audit. Are you
Mhm.
chasing validation or building value? Again, it could be almost addictive to have those viral moments and to see those numbers. And that's something we didn't even talk about too much, but it truly, it becomes like almost like a high that you're chasing when you're having this viral success.
As you were talking about that, it reminded me of like back when Instagram became like a platform. And it was so funny because I had just recently scrolled all the way back in my feed. And I like still recall like posting those first posts and like those initial likes. And it is crazy human psychology, right? And how our brain works and how rewarding that felt. And it was like now reflecting back and looking at it, it was like, I got 13 likes on this post. And I was like, I am the coolest person that exists.
100%.
um
100%. And it's hard not to. It's hard not to when you see the numbers coming in. You're like, oh my gosh, so many people like this, like they like me.
well, and you had shared at the beginning of the call too, like some upwards of 33 million people are assumed to be or estimated to be addicted to social media, which like as a human running marketing campaigns or as a human being a business owner running a brand, like you can't escape the psychological aspect of, what social media is doing to us. So it's like you do need to be extra careful that like it doesn't become an obsession, that it's not again distracting you from the most important things you should be doing for your business. So I think that's just like that human behavioral piece is super important to consider as you look to your use of social media too. For that reason, maybe there's not as much of a need to be on social media if you're seeing there's like a like kind of wellness balance that you're having a hard time achieving, especially as a solopreneur and you're managing all of your marketing or you're managing all of your social media. It can become all consuming. Like we've talked about, we've talked to businesses that are or marketers that are running their own social, and they're like, I spent 4 hours putting this post together, and then it just does nothing for them. Not only does it not get the vanity metric engagements, it actually doesn't drive any of the bottom line metrics either. So just be really careful about balance there.
Absolutely. And I would almost recommend too, for if social media feels like it's becoming self-serving to you in a way of promoting your business, maybe it's worth thinking about creating a personal account, like a founder account, where it's you kind of sharing your more personal stories or kind of using it in that, I don't want to say in a self-serving way, but to post things that, don't necessarily need to live on your business account too. So if you find yourself kind of having trouble separating those things, it's always, an option to have a personal account where you talk about your founder story or your entrepreneur journey, and then just your business account too. Because again, you need to really ask yourself, are you chasing the validation, the likes, the comments, or are you actually building the value that's going to, lead to success and revenue for your business?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing too is how often are you checking your analytics compared to your actual customer relationships and the actual kind of check-ins that you're having with your customers? Metrics are great to track, they're important, but like we talked about too, that human connection aspect and actually talking to your customers and communicating with them where they're showing up is so important too. And I
Yeah.
think it's important.
Yeah, and we talk about this when we're doing our initial discovery with new clients too. We'll do a lot of that buyer persona research, and we'll collect both that qualitative and quantitative data. So that qualitative data is in the stories and the conversations and the feedback that we're getting from individual consumers, from focus groups. That really helps to provide context to the metrics, the data, the hard cold numbers. And I think that's super important to kind of fuse those two together to create the full picture and make those decisions.
Absolutely. And then kind of like we talked about before too, just do your social goals align with your business goals. So obviously everyone almost is going to have this underlying goal of wanting to go viral on social media, but how is that actually going to align with your business goals? And again, end of the year is a great time to take a step back and really reevaluate your business goals as well, and kind of think, how could I use social media more as a tool as opposed to kind of this end all be all of, I would have the ultimate success if I just, went viral.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, because we didn't really talk about this much, is there is value in just having a social presence too, right? So I think human nature now is to default to like, oh, what's this brand doing on Instagram, on TikTok? And so, again, it might not be all the platforms, but depending on your audience, it might be helpful just to have an Instagram page and be consistently providing, valuable content there for the sake of showing that you're relevant, that you're still around, especially with COVID and all the years where a bunch of businesses went under and out. Like, I still exist. I'm still providing value. I'm an expert in the space. So again, it might not be doing that for the likes and the engagement, but there's some perception value there as well that I think can help to create some trust with consumers that are trying to decide whether or not they should move forward. If they go to a page, the last post was 2019, then they might question like, what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, with the younger generations, that's almost like a default. Like I, would dare to say that most people are probably looking up a brand or a business's Instagram page before they're navigating to their website to check, is this brand still around? Are they open? What's going on? I feel like that's kind of become the default. So like you said, if they don't have that presence, or they have a presence and they haven't posted it, it could kind of almost deter customers away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just even thinking of like recent interactions I've personally had with individuals where I'm like, oh, I'll share their Instagram profile with you. I don't share their website with them. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I think the go-to for most people is, oh, what's their Instagram handle, or what are they doing on social?
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So like you said, having that platform is almost just so important for the visibility aspect. But we kind of challenge you to audit your your social media this week and see, is it serving your business goals? Is it serving you? Are there things that you could be doing or tracking to kind of determine the success of your business differently and looking at it through a different lens instead of just that social media focused only vision that I feel like it's hard not to have these days. And again, just to give you some takeaways, in the words of my grandpa, likes don't pay the bills. Conversions do, something really important to remember. A reminder to focus on connection, consistency, and conversions, not the attention, not the visibility, not the kind of that feeling that comes with those viral moments and those likes. And the best brands use social to start relationships and not necessarily prove relevance. So again, they're not there to prove, hey, we got 10,000 likes on this post. They're looking to form a long-term fan base and kind of convert those temporary fans into long-term fans of the business.
Yep, love it. I think lots of great insights and takeaways for listeners today that are either just getting started on social or are struggling with their how to leverage their social media. So definitely, take away what resonates most with you. We're always open to feedback too. Feel free to drop some comments. Visit our website, check out our social media, and see what we've got going on.
Absolutely. I was going to say you could give us a critique on our social too. I was going to say you could use these things we talked about today to audit us. We're always open to feedback, and it could be a good conversation starter. So let us know, and we will see you for another episode where we're going to be busting some more myths this season. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren.